What if your death wasn't an accident, but the result of a government experiment gone horribly wrong? Frank Olson's mysterious death has sparked questions, theories, and controversy for decades. Was it murder, or was it a chilling cover-up? In the winter of 1953, Frank Olson, a U.S. Army biochemist, plunged to his death from the window of a 10th-floor hotel room in New York City. It seemed like a tragic case of suicide, but as the years went by, the story surrounding his death grew more sinister. Frank Olson's untimely demise would later come to be known as one of the most bizarre and controversial deaths in U.S. history, one tangled in government secrets, mind control experiments, and the murky waters of covert intelligence operations. Frank Olson was a respected scientist working for the U.S. Army's Special Operations Division, which later became the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. In the early 1950s, Olson was involved in researching biological weapons, specifically toxins and germs that could be used for military purposes. But Olson's story would take a strange turn when his research began to intersect with a shadowy government project that most Americans knew nothing about, MK-Ultra. MK-Ultra was a top-secret CIA program aimed at investigating mind control techniques, often through the use of drugs like LSD. The program's goal was to develop methods for interrogation, brainwashing, and manipulating individuals for intelligence purposes. The experiments were conducted without the consent of the participants, and many subjects were exposed to extreme psychological and physical distress. In 1953, Olson, who had been working with the CIA on biological warfare projects, was secretly exposed to LSD as part of an MK-Ultra experiment. The drug was administered without his knowledge at a CIA retreat in Maryland, where Olson and his colleagues were gathered for a weekend. The intention was to study the effects of LSD on unwitting individuals, including its ability to alter thoughts and behavior. Olson's reaction to the LSD was catastrophic. After taking the drug, he began experiencing severe psychological distress, including paranoia and delusions. He confided in his wife and colleagues that he felt as though his mind was no longer his own. Fearing for his mental stability, Olson began to suspect that the CIA had experimented on him in ways he didn't fully understand. This mounting fear and paranoia led him to question everything, even the loyalty of those around him. The day after the LSD experiment, Olson began to speak out about the effects it had on him. He wanted to quit his job and walk away from the CIA's covert operations. However, rather than letting him leave, his superiors decided to send him on a rest trip to New York City to recover from the psychological toll he had suffered. On November 28, 1953, Frank Olson was staying at the Statler Hotel in New York City. That night, Olson's life would come to a shocking and tragic end. He allegedly fell or was pushed through the window of his hotel room, falling 10 stories to his death. The police initially ruled it as a suicide, though there was little evidence to support this conclusion. There were no signs that Olson had planned to take his life, and his family was adamant that he would not have committed suicide. What made Olson's death even more suspicious were the bizarre circumstances surrounding it. Olson's body showed signs of unusual trauma, including a cut on his head, suggesting that there might have been a struggle. His family later discovered that he had been under heavy surveillance by the CIA before his death, raising questions about whether his fall was truly an accident. For over 20 years, the Olson family was kept in the dark about the true nature of Frank Olson's death. It wasn't until 1975, during a series of congressional hearings on CIA activities, that the truth began to emerge. Olson's family learned that he had been part of MK-Ultra experiments and had been dosed with LSD without his consent. The CIA had failed to disclose this information to the family, and it was only through public pressure that the government acknowledged Olson's role in the mind control experiments. In 1975, Olson's son, Eric Olson, filed a lawsuit demanding justice for his father's death. The CIA eventually admitted to its involvement, though it was never entirely clear whether Frank Olson's death was a result of the LSD experiment, whether he was murdered to prevent him from going public with what he knew, or whether it was simply a tragic accident. The case was settled with a large financial payout to the Olson family, but questions remained unanswered. Was Frank Olson's death an intentional cover-up, a psychological breakdown that led to suicide, or something more nefarious? His death became a symbol of the dark side of government secrecy and the lengths to which some were willing to go to conceal their covert operations. There are three main theories that continue to circulate about Olson's death. Some believe that Olson was killed to keep him quiet. His knowledge of the CIA's secret experiments was dangerous, and some speculated that he was murdered to prevent him from revealing what he knew about MK-Ultra. The official explanation at the time was that Olson committed suicide, perhaps as a result of the psychological breakdown caused by the LSD. His family, however, has always rejected this idea, claiming that it simply didn't fit Olson's character or state of mind. Another theory suggests that Olson might have accidentally fallen from the window during a moment of confusion or distress, possibly caused by the LSD or his deteriorating mental state. However, the lack of any concrete evidence for this theory makes it difficult to accept. Frank Olson's tragic death serves as a chilling reminder of the darker side of government secrecy and the willingness of intelligence agencies to conduct covert experiments on unsuspecting individuals. To this day, the full truth about his death remains elusive, and his story continues to fuel speculation about the dark history of MK-Ultra and its impact on those who became ensnared in its experiments. The mystery of Frank Olson's death raises uncomfortable questions. How far was the U.S. government willing to go in the name of national security? And what price did Olson and others like him pay for the sins of secrecy? His legacy is one of unanswered questions, cover-ups, and the unsettling reality that sometimes the truth is far stranger and more disturbing than we could ever imagine. What do you think happened to Frank Olson? Was his death the result of a tragic accident, a desperate suicide, or a dark, government-sponsored cover-up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more eerie true crime and unexplained mysteries from the past.